Hello everyone. So today we will start with Hindu Marriage Act. Starting with its features, the very first we have its enactment. It was enacted on 18th May 1955 and extends to whole of India except the state of Jammu and Kashmir. To the students watching, I have one question for you all. Uh, Tell me in the comment section below what will be the laws in Jammu and Kashmir governing marriages. Next, we have the essential conditions of valid marriage and ceremonies pertaining to valid marriage. The Act also made provisions for the registration of marriage. Then, Section 9 deals with the restitution of conjugal rights. The Act also made provisions for judicial separation, void marriages, voidable marriages. Also, we have provision for divorce. Section 13 deals with various grounds for divorce, the legitimacy of illegitimate children. Section 26 deals with maintenance of minor children. Then, here are some terminologies which are important. Then, dealing with Section 5, which are the conditions for valid marriage. The very first we have is monogamy, which says neither party should have spouse living. That means the Act supports monogamy, which means having one spouse. The parties to the marriage should either be unmarried, widow, widower, or divorced during the time of marriage. Then, the next essential condition is mental capacity. The parties to the marriage must be competent to contract marriage. Neither of the parties must have been suffering from unsoundness of mind, mental disorder, insanity. Parties must be capable of giving a valid consent, should not be suffering from mental disorder of such a kind and to such an extent as to be unfit for marriage and the procreation of children. Epilepsy was also considered for the invalidity of marriage as Section 5, Clause 2, Subclause C, which was omitted by Act 39 of 1999. Then we have the third condition, that is the age of parties, which is 18 for bride and 21 years for bridegroom. Then next condition we have is degree of prohibited relationships. Unless there is custom governing the contracting parties, the parties to the marriage should not be in the degree of prohibited relationship. The instances for prohibited relationship are, the very first is lineal ascendant, that is a father and a daughter and the son and a mother cannot marry to each other. Then we have wife or a husband of lineal ascendants, that is father-in-law and a widow daughter-in-law cannot marry to each other. Then we have widow mother-in-law and son-in-law, that is they cannot marry to each other. The third instance is brother and a sister, uncle and a niece, aunt and nephew, children of brother and sister cannot marry to each other. However, in South India, marriage between children of brother and sister and between male and his sister's daughter are valid. That is, one can marry within prohibited relationship if the custom governing so allows. The last condition we have is Sapinda relationship, which means two persons offering pind to same ancestors, which earlier was 7 generation through father and 5 generation through mother, which now has been reduced to 5 generation through father and 3 generation through mother. So with this we complete the topic conditions for valid marriage. Basically we have 5 conditions: monogamy, neither party should have spouse living, mental capacity, age of the parties 18 for bride and 21 for the groom, prohibited relationship and Sapinda relationship. Here we have degrees of prohibited relationship for men and for women. So the next topic we have is marriage ceremonies, section 7. Basically there are 3 type of marriages: shastric, customary and statutory. In all these systems, no marriage can be validly performed without certain formalities or marriage ceremonies. These ceremonies bring sanctity and solemnity to the institution of marriage. There are many ceremonies prescribed in the Hindu marriage, namely Kanyadan, Saptapati, Ganpati Puja, etc. The law is uncertain as to which of these rites and ceremonies are essential and mandatory. According to Section 7 of this Act, the marriage must have been solemnized in accordance with the customary rites and ceremonies of at least one of the parties to the marriage. It is not necessary that the customary rites and ceremonies of both the parties should be followed. Section 7 of this Act says Hindu marriage may be solemnized in accordance with the customary rites and ceremonies of either party, and where such rites and ceremonies include the Saptapadi, that is, taking 7 steps by the bridegroom and the bride jointly before the sacred fire, the marriage becomes complete and binding when the 7th step is taken. The Act does not prescribe any form of ceremonies and left to the choice of the parties concerned. The two widely accepted Shastric ceremonies of valid marriage are Kanyadan and Saptapadi. The very first ceremony is Kanyadan, which we all know is a gift of the bride given by her father to the bridegroom. The second we have is Vivahoma, the most important ceremony for the validity of a Hindu marriage. It consists obligation of lighting or burning of a holy fire, symbolizing it as a divine witness. The third we have is Saptapadi. The word Sapt means 7 and Padi means walking steps. Saptapadi means walking or taking 7 steps by the bridegroom and the bride jointly around the sacred fire, pronouncing certain mantras and pledging mutual fidelity with the Agni or sacred fire as the witness. So we have some relevant case laws. The first one is Priyabala versus Suresh, in which Supreme Court held that Homa and Saptapadi are essential and commission to perform these rites would not constitute a valid marriage under Hindu Marriage Act. The next case we have is of Dr. A.N. Mukherjee versus State. In this case, the complainant got married to a physician. She alleged that she married him thrice, firstly before the moon, secondly in Kali temple by exchanging garlands, and thirdly as an imitation of Sikh marriage before Guru Granth Sahib. Later, she lodged a complaint against her husband for the offence of bigamy. It was held by the court that such mock ceremonies would not constitute a valid marriage. Then the next topic we have is of registration of Hindu marriage, section 8, which empowers the state government to make rules for the registration of a marriage between two Hindus. Registration enables the parties to prove the marriage in the event of disputes. Basically, registration is only for the purpose of preserving a record of the marriages and facilitating their proof. In Seema versus Ashwini Kumar, AIR 2006, the Supreme Court has held that marriages of all persons who are citizens of India belonging to various religions should be made compulsorily registrable in their respective states where the marriage is solemnized. However, but no state government can make a rule that failure to register a marriage will render it invalid. Hereby, we cover conditions, ceremonies, and registration of Hindu marriages. That is all for this video. We will continue it in our next video.